Hi everyone, welcome. People have been requesting me to make a more in-depth video about this Surge Necromancer build. I call it Hemomancer or Hemomancer for sure. I don't really want to rant much and go into too much detail and give too much of the basics. I'm pretty sure everyone at this point has been playing the game enough to understand a lot of the things, so I don't have to explain how multipliers work or how to set up your paragon board and whatnot. I'll have my full build in the description below, along with all my paragon points, my skills, what aspects I'm using. I'll tell you, my gear has not really changed that much since I made the first video, which was also in the link. But small things have changed. So far, as you level up in paragons and open up more options, it starts feeling like every spec does become a lot more viable. The minion build is probably the worst one in terms of scaling, but otherwise it still works, and you just have to focus a lot of points into minion health along with whips and whatnot. For now, I'd like to focus on Surge Necromancer, which is what this video is about. And I've been trying different variations of the build, primarily changing things in my paragon board and see what works best. I spent quite a bit of time today reviewing combinations for my board, trying to maximize specific nodes and their bonuses, and moving around glyphs to see which combination would work out best and give me all the bonuses that I require. They're not necessarily the best glyphs you can use, nor are they the best combination of things you can use, but keep in mind, at level 74, we can still get about 104 points once you max out level 100, so I leave this up to you. You guys can experiment, you can tell me what works best for you. Perhaps you see bigger numbers, but for now, this is working. I will be tweaking this slowly as I level up keys, probably switching points into tankier nodes and trying to maximize armor nodes and plus life percent nodes. Keep in mind, this build does scale with max HP very well, which is the purpose of this. But the key aspects of this build really revolve around overpower damage, max HP, blood orbs, and generating enough essence in a big pack. So now, you ask yourself where the multipliers come from. Well, just from base stats, intellect is giving you damage, dexterity gives you crit, strength gives you HP, which also gives you overpower damage, I believe. Beyond that, how are you doing damage with the build itself? So, when you apply vulnerability with Bone Prison, all the mobs take X amount of damage. You can increase it on your stats, on your gear, but it's not the big thing that's happening. If you notice, you will be building these stacks that go up to 15, and the buff is counting up right now. You can see it, it's at 10 stacks right now, 11, 12, etc. That's the Bloodbath talent, I believe, and that's what causes you to overpower extremely hard. You want to try to time that, especially when you're fighting a single elite mob. Just time it so that it comes up, you hit the corpse tendrils, and then you just hit the button, surge, and everything, you know, hope it crits. Once it crits, it scales on top of that with crit damage. I am not so sure about that, but that's supposed to work that way, I think. And that's how you get these big numbers in elite packs, or single bosses for that matter. When you're in packs, it's not much of a problem because you're overpowering every 5 blood surge stacks, but otherwise, on single target, you run out of essence pretty quickly, so you want to maximize the short buff time that you have between increased crit damage from tendrils, the vulnerability, and hitting it as hard as you can with that overpower. So you'll see here, fighting Scourge of the Land. You notice how fast I ran out of essence because it's a single target, so it's expected. So you can hemorrhage and just hit it as much as you can, donate some blood orbs. When you pick them up, you gain percent damage increase. Beyond that, just max out your essence, time your corpse tendrils, and then unleash your surges until it blows up. Now what you can do here is wait till your stacks of Bloodbath go to 15, You don't want to cast Hemorrhage. You don't want to cast Surge yet. You do Corpse Tendrils into Surge. There you go. And the boss just dies. This build definitely does not do as much the Bone Spear Necromancer, which is what a lot of builds tell you is the end game. I totally agree. That spec actually does a ton of damage. Same with the Bone Spirit build. However, I don't really like the playstyle for the Bone Spear build. I feel like a lot of, like Glass Cannon, it's really good in group play, but if you're soloing, this build is much tankier, and it still does pretty decent damage, but it keeps you alive for sure. And again, my gear isn't really tailored very well for the build yet. I have a lot of pieces to replace. The unique chest that gives you blood orb damage is actually pretty decent. I don't have an ancestral one that's good enough for this build yet, but there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. Other things to mention are really just play around your multipliers, correct? So you want to try to maximize your blood orb uptime. Right now I don't have the legendary that makes me drop blood orbs. I am running legendary nodes that gives me damage reduction with corpses nearby and damage increase with corpses nearby as well with one of the glyphs, I believe. These two are pretty big. My glyphs are absolutely not leveled low. I think my highest one is level 9. I just swapped a new one in, so it's level 2 or 3 at the moment. Again, you can play around with this build quite a bit. It has a lot of variations. This is just one of them. I've tried playing Decrepify over Tendrils in group play where at 10% mobs gets executed. It works fairly well. It also slows mobs, so any pieces with crowd control damage increase work pretty well. But again, the stats to focus on are overpower, blood orb damage, percent life, armor. Max essence you don't want to be putting on the gear necessarily. You generate quite a bit as it is. And then I'll let you just check the build on d4builds.gg. It's comprehensive. You'll see all the aspects you need. And I hope everyone's enjoyed this a little bit, or it shines some new light on how the spec works. It's personally pretty fun to play. It's not perfect, obviously. I do die from time to time, but it's mostly related to mob type. I do find it really effective for farming Hell Tides, anything in the outer world. You just decimate packs really fast. I wish we had a bit more movement speed with this. Unfortunately, I don't know what else to do. We could probably build in Reaper's Mark, I believe it's called, one of the skills that give you movement speed on crit. But I don't really have darkness skills, so I wouldn't think it would work very well. There's a Blood Mist legendary that gives you movement speed or doesn't slow you anymore. That could be good, combined with a Corpse Explosion Blood Mist to generate essence on top of that. But for the most part, if I'm pushing sigils, I would just stick to a build like this one for now until I hit a real wall. So next I'll just show you what my gear looks like in my character select, or rather my character panel. You'll see the stats I have and whatnot. My entire build is in d4builds.gg. I'll post a link in the description, but if you want to look at it here, feel free to pause and go through each piece. Otherwise, the rest of the video will just be sped up gameplay, but you should have the basics now.
I'm not ready yet.
So, as I mentioned earlier, for the rest of the gear and whatnot, I mean, everything is in the build for aspects. I want to just show you that my gear isn't the greatest. I am running pieces that I've had for days now because I haven't found replacements. There's not even sockets in this chest. But the basics are there. Really, it starts with the Mother's Embrace Ring, which I got an upgrade recently. This allows you to generate resource within AoE packs. That's how you don't really run out of essence. Then you have this other ring that just gives you essence every time you heal, which is every time you hit Blood Surge, you're healing. On top of that, You have a barrier generator with the legs whenever an elite pops up, which gives you damage based on my amulet that's running the conceded aspect. But then again, you can also proc it with Bone Storm, which I have. Bone Storm gives you a barrier based on your percent life. This is a really low roll. I have another piece with a 5% that I haven't replaced yet, but for now this chest is doing its job. I'll work on the rest of my set this weekend. Hopefully I have more time to play. The other piece that's big for me is my weapon. Actually, the rolls aren't terrible. It could be better. The weapon could be higher level, but it gives me overpower damage. It gives me crit damage. Almost 94%. 84%. Sorry, 94% crit damage. 94.5. And then damage to injured enemies as well, which actually works a lot better with elites and bosses. The imprint is just 4% rolls, which is on this. It's best to put it on a weapon. I think it gives you the biggest gain here because it's a massive multiplier. One-handers only get half the benefit. And then for gems, I'm mostly running rubies. I added cold resistance on this piece and then switched to these boots with cold resistance. Just to fiddle around, because my biggest problems in any sigil is really the cold effects mobs that stun you and chain stun you, and it really didn't make much of a difference. Mostly, you'll have luck if you can just stun them and kill them, or pull them into a pack, pull corpse tendrils in, and hopefully they'll die in your big AoE burst. You stack 15 stacks of bloodbath. So, to summarize, the whole combo really revolves around popping corpse tendrils, and then getting close to 15 stacks of your bloodbath, and then start surging. With Bone Storm active, you gain more crit, which means it is likely you'll delete the pack. Iron Maiden, you can use two ways. One is to just heal yourself when the mobs die, so if there's a lot of little minions around that will die quickly, you pop this, it will heal you from max HP when the mobs die. But you can also use it just to get essence back. So if you haven't cursed the pack and you're using your surge and you're running low, you just hit it and you'll get back a ton of essence for each mob. I think it's 5 essence in this case, but it's pretty good. It just works really well for this build. Bone Prison you can use in various ways. You're already giving vulnerability with corpse tendrils, so it's not necessary to have Bone Prison, but it is another essence generator. Depending on the amount of people or mobs you trap in your Bone Prison. There is a limit, I believe. But it should just max you out or get you pretty high to kill the pack. It also applies vulnerability, so if Corpse Tendrils on cooldown, just pop this and it's an extra bit of damage. In general, I try not to stop too much when I'm actually running sigils. Sometimes I get sidetracked and kill a single mob, but you want to just keep going to the objectives and killing the elites. Try not to kill too many minions. If you run into a problematic elite, you can always kite to a different pack and try to bunch them up and then kill them. It works better that way most of the time. But yeah, that's the basics of the build. I hope you enjoyed this. It is quite a lengthy video at this point. I don't really like making anything above 5 minutes because I feel like people lose interest or just not as informative. If you have any questions, if you have a variation of the build that you're liking and it's working for you, or a different Paragon board setup that you think it might be better, let me know. You can post in the comments. I'm always looking for feedback for this blood build because the combination of things you can do with the Paragon board is actually pretty big. It's a bit daunting, overwhelming just looking at it, and then understanding what glyphs you can put where you can maximize a glyph. It's too big brain for me, to be honest. But thank you for watching. I hope this helps you on your journey to 100